Hi, I'm Ellie from crystallinks.com. Today is Thursday, June 8th, 2017. This week in the news, in the science news, one of the main articles said, genes influence ability to read a person's mind through their eyes or from their eyes. That is in part true, I guess, for some people, but it took me into my file on telepathy and how we feel about it and why so many people want it, and the fact that many of us use it and we don't even realize we are. Telepathy goes all the way back to the beginning, so when we talk about the beginning, we really need to know creation. What is it? What is this human experience? Okay. Creation is meant by many definitions a dream, a simulation, a hologram that is created by consciousness grids. It's kind of become a more popular theory today than it was in the past, but that is actually the case. So what happens with the whole concept of telepathy? Yes, you are reading my thoughts or looking into my eyes and saying, what is Ellie really thinking? And I'm doing the same thing with you or my clients or people I know. But what's really going on, the real math and science of it, is you are taking your consciousness grid or your matrix and you are connecting it to somebody else's, and you are bringing back thoughts and imagery from that person and sending information to another. For some, yes, this is genetic, it's innate. For others, it can be developed. It all depends on, the person's genetic codes. Looking at somebody, I'm a visual person, so yes, when I read with somebody and they bring pictures of people they want to talk about, or if I'm even talking to them, I do like to look in the eyes, but I'm not looking in the eyes really. I'm really not. What you're doing is you look at the person or wherever else you choose to focus your consciousness. You're relaxing your mind, and then you're allowing the flow of information between your grid matrix and theirs to go back and forth. It's really not that complicated. People like telepathy for many different reasons. They study it, they practice it. It's easier in meditation because in meditation you're relaxing the mind. Telepathy occurs in dream time too. You're coming back and saying, oh wow, I met so-and-so in my dreams and they gave me a message. That's telepathic. In your day-to-day life, you would be surprised how much you rely on what you call your intuition, which is part of your telepathic abilities and skills. You may be a mom who's out driving and suddenly you get this message telepathically from your child that something is wrong or something is off, because telepathic skills and any other skills increase when emotions are heightened. There is a connection between psychic abilities and emotions because we live in a matrix that is emotionally driven. So here's this mom and she suddenly gets this intuition, this telepathic message. My child needs me at home, calls the child, texts. Well, you don't text when you drive, but gets in touch with the child, turns around and goes home. Telepathy is strongest most often with people you live with because your matrices are just used to connecting. So it's just this back and forth is like almost instant. And it's also true of people who are family members, and that your psychic abilities, let's say you had a dream that grandma died, okay, or somebody else in the family died, you wake up and you say, what was that, and you call that person only to discover, yes, they had passed. That takes telepathy into not just your consciousness streams or your matrices, it also takes it to timelines as well. That means your consciousness in your dream moved forward into another timeline, collected some information telepathically, and brought it back into this timeline. And you processed it, you woke up, and you said, oh, somebody died, something happened. Actually, it's not always about the bad stuff. I know a lot of people who don't practice psychic abilities, but they know when someone's going to get pregnant. And they'll just call me and say, I had a dream that my so-and-so, my friend, my daughter-in-law, or whoever is pregnant. And it could even be with twins. It could be a very specific dream and information you brought back telepathically, and it all comes to pass. Now, who asks me the most about developing telepathy? Well, I generally do not work with teens. I don't have them at my classes unless the parent is there. But teens want to develop their abilities, their psychic abilities. Some are bullied. Some just want to read the teacher's mind. They want to know about text. They want to know things. And they feel if they develop psychic abilities, they will know what other teens like them, because there's a lot of bullying. Who likes them. If it's a guy, he'll tell me, I just want to know if Lisa really likes me, or is she dating somebody else, or it's just this teen stuff, but it shows the interaction between emotions, and we are an emotionally based simulation, and your ability to telepath. When you really need to do it, you can do it. It's like anything else. It's like lifting the car, and the adrenaline rush happens when you really need it, when you really call on that part of your consciousness to do it. You can do it. Now, let's see. I made myself a few notes here, and I want to see, okay, we came to Earth way back when, at the beginning of this hologram, okay? When we were primitive. I don't know if some of the information about primitive man and missing links and all of that is true, but primitive peoples, should we call them, be they Neanderthals or any of the other species we're learning about, used telepathy all the time. Their ability to communicate was generally more just grunts and noises, and so they had to rely on their telepathic ability to save lives, to get things done, just to live in their day-to-day environment. So because of that, their telepathic abilities might have been stronger than ours are today, and that's just a survival mechanism. But going back to the beginning of this hologram and whatever influences have happened, telepathy has always been part of it. We ground ourselves so much today in everyday life and everyday world, and all the dramas and traumas that are happening politically and with climate and with our relationships and our families and our finances and everything else, that we don't tune up that much. You know, we don't really go to the telepathic part of us. We just are so enmeshed and drowned in physical reality and survival. But when you need it, it will be there. You have to know it will be there. Now, let's see. Some of the other notes that I put up today, because I redid my file, okay, is the connection between psychics and telepathic abilities and also mediumship, okay? When you do something where you're connecting with a spirit, be it your spirit guide, someone who's deceased and crossed over, it all goes to telepathy. It's basically about your ability to merge your grid with somebody else's. You know, animals do this too. That's something else I forgot to mention. Animals are very telepathic. They will know when something's wrong with another animal, probably someone they live with or encounter all the time, and with the human they live with also. This is domesticated animals. They can sense, okay? We call it a sixth sense, call it whatever, but their grid will interlock with the human, and they will be able to pick up what's wrong, and vice versa. You know, it's the same thing as with healing. It's grids that merge, and information is exchanged back and forth. That is it. Keep it simple. Genetically, many people are more inclined to telepathy, but it can be learned, whether it's from taking psychic development classes, and I have a lot of files on psychic development you could practice on your own, or maybe you can look on YouTube on other psychic development lessons. But can you learn to telepathically develop your skills? Absolutely. It's just that, okay, so let's say you've taken a psychic development class and you say, I've just, learned how to read someone's mind, which is a skill some people want, for ego value or whatever. Or you just develop these abilities, but once you go back, it's like going to a conference and the energies are high and meditations make you even higher. Then you go back to your everyday life. And once you're back in your everyday life, which is what you're really programmed to do, those connections they're not completely severed, but they really are on a lower frequency. So it's a little harder to telepath. I had one friend I met, back in the 80s, 1980s. I don't go back to the 1880s, but in the 1980s, who had strong abilities to read people's minds. But she found that a very annoying skill because, let's say her and her husband were out to dinner and she could hear telepathically what was going on with people in the restaurant. And she found that really very annoying, which left her two choices: don't go out to eat that much, or try to develop your ability so that if you want it turned off, it's turned off. I mean, I couldn't imagine, I can read people's minds, but I couldn't imagine sitting in a restaurant and picking up all the chatter from everybody around. So your brain, your consciousness has to say, okay, when I turn it on like a switch, I can read somebody's mind, but I can turn it off also and telepathically not pick up all the other thoughts. It's like a radio. It's frequency, and you really, really do not want to overstep your bounds and pick up people's thoughts when you shouldn't, and they wouldn't want you to. And just have this constant, there are people who can't turn it off, and they have come to me and say, I just can't take the noises in my head. And it's not because they're psychotic, that's another whole window. It's because they just hear other people's thoughts. It's not an easy thing to live with, and you really can't turn it off. It's like if you live in a house with a lot of external noises, you can find ways to shut them out. But for the most part, I would say 99.9% of the population has telepathic abilities, uses them as needed in their daily lives, uses them at a higher frequency when needed to tune into things that are not part of our physical daily experiences, and really can have a lot of fun with it. It goes along with, of course, teleportation, remote viewing. It's taking the consciousness and learning to develop some skills. So on that note, I hope this was helpful to you. I am not at this point teaching people how to develop their psychic abilities. That used to be very, very big for a very long time, and I'm sure people out there are still doing it today. But I can't go back to the way I taught before. My teaching today has to come from a place of, we live in a holographic universe, in a simulation. And the more people are letting go of their physical experiences and attaching so much emotion to them, the more they are able to go to higher frequency and develop skills such as telepathy. It's good for some and not for others. Enjoy.